And it is. And we're there. Beautiful. How are we feeling about Imola? It's a very mixed grid coming into Imola. We didn't know whether there'd be any repercussions for the Ollie Behrman situation. He was told absolutely not. So no benefits for Ollie Behrman there. Still starts from 19th place. Obviously, Franco Colapinto and Yuki Tsunoda. We didn't know whether they'd be ready. Their cars in pieces after Q1 yesterday. Yuki Tsunoda is going to be starting from the pit lane, but Franco Colapinto, they've managed to put that Alpine car back together again. And in case you missed it, Alex Albon also had a leak in his Williams car that the team have been rushing to get fixed underneath his Williams so that he can start where he should be after qualifying just behind his teammate yesterday. And they have managed to fix that leak in Alex Albon's car. So we should see both of the Williamses starting pretty high up after a sensational qualifying from them once again. In fact, it was so sensational that Carlos Sainz was starting to talk about whether or not the Williams team could, or he was being asked about at least, whether or not the Williams team could maybe even snag a podium at some point this season. He downplayed it a little bit, and to be fair, he did make the point that Williams have already started working on their 2026 car, so unlikely that their 2025 car will get any better, and therefore unlikely that we will get to see the Williams car get any higher up on the list. Oh, I've just realised I haven't opened the chat. People could be talking about Piastri, and I would have absolutely no idea. In fact, Peanut Jr. has said that Piastri is his Pookie. Isn't that lovely? Piastri poll indeed. Well, that might have been a chat that's come in from yesterday. In case you missed it, Piastri is on pole. Hello, Clara. How's it going? Avil as well. How are you doing? There we go. And there's Sally confirming that it is working. Hello, Sally. Hello, Josh as well. Welcome back. Hello, hello. How are we? We're good. Good, actually. Had a very sort of chilled morning. I've got a job interview tomorrow, so I was preparing a little bit for that, getting psyched up. You know, run it through in your head, don't you? The day before, but ready and raring to go. That's to one side now, though. Focus is on Imola. Yeah, that must have been yesterday. Piastri indeed on pole. Shall we go through where we are for the Imola Grand Prix? It's a little bit of a weird one, isn't it? Starting in such a strange spot. We know that turn 1 isn't going to be really a talking point. Turn 2, more the talking point, going down into that chicane with Piastri versus Verstappen. But first and foremost, your guys' predictions. So, as you know, on the Monday of the race week, I put out a community post and asked for your predictions when it comes to the winner of the Grand Prix, the two drivers you think that will be on the podium alongside them, the surprise package of the weekend, the best team of the weekend, and then some negatives alongside that. Which driver you think is going to struggle the most and which team you think is going to have the worst weekend. This is what you said coming into Imola. You had Oscar Piastri managing to break records, or at least equal records, inside of his McLaren car. He'd be the first driver to score 4 podiums in a row since Jack Brabham. Score wins in a row, 4 wins in a row. And he'd be the first McLaren driver to get 4 wins in a row since Ayrton Senna, if it does happen this weekend. Starting from pole position, starting as good as it can possibly be, can he turn that into another victory? He's only started on pole 3 times this year, of course. But every time he has started on pole, he has turned that into a victory. Max Verstappen starting just beside him. You guys had Max Verstappen 3rd on the podium, with Lando Norris 2nd on the podium. And I've realized I've just forgotten to swap those two around. But that was the way that you had it in your predictions. Lando Norris got the 2nd most votes, and Max Verstappen got the 3rd most votes on average across the podium places. Lando Norris starting from 4th place. You would say, considering the pace that the McLaren car had last time out in Miami. We saw Lando Norris drop down the grid after that side-by-side with Max Verstappen into the first couple of corners, but was still able to get past almost everybody, only his teammate Oscar Piastri finishing ahead of Lando Norris in Miami last time out. So even if Lando Norris is starting a little bit further back, I think there is the anticipation that the McLaren car will still have enough over the 62 laps to get back ahead of their competitors. Surprise package, you had Kimi Antonelli. I can understand why his first Italian Grand Prix, his real home Grand Prix, considering, Monza, I know, is the Italian Grand Prix rather than the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix that we have here in Imola. But he grew up down the road, Bologna is only 40 minutes away or so. And it was a disappointing qualifying from him yesterday, but we know he does like an overtake. We've seen him starting down the grid a couple of times this year and actually make his way forward. So I wouldn't say that it's completely done and dusted for Kimi Antonelli in there either. Best team you're expecting, McLaren. I think that's going to be the case throughout the majority of the season, unless someone's upgrade package really does take your fancy. Maybe Aston Martin, is looking like a pretty good upgrade. Fernando Alonso played it down a touch, saying maybe it was just that the Imola track suited the Aston Martin car a little bit better, but you never know. Maybe Aston Martin will sneak a podium at some point this season. They haven't been on there since the beginning of 2023. And then underneath, it's always Lewis Hamilton at this point. Like, it does seem that struggle position is becoming the Lewis Hamilton vote. It was a little bit more of a mix this time out. There was also shouts for Franco Colapinto having a tough weekend, for Liam Lawson having a tough weekend, but the most votes once again went to Lewis Hamilton having the worst weekend. He is starting outside of the points. He's starting behind his teammate. The Ferrari car just doesn't seem to like this Imola track at all. They really couldn't get to grips with it. Lewis has been complaining throughout all of the free practice sessions and now into qualifying. He actually didn't complain too much. I think maybe because he was still within touch and distance of his teammate. But Lewis Hamilton not happy inside of that Ferrari car. And Stake Sauber being the team to be called a flop. Starting ahead of the two Hasses, though. And I don't know. I think, Gabriel Bortoleto getting into Q2, as controversial as it was, he did manage to get into Q2, but we'll kind of see how their race pace plays out, whether or not Stake will be able to get themselves off the bottom of the Constructors' Championship. Hello, Sarah. How's it going? Do I think Yuki Tsunoda will be dropped anytime in the season? And we have heard that Helmut Marko is saying, or has said, that Yuki Tsunoda will get the whole season. Whether that happens, I think the problem is who do you go for, right? If you get rid of Yuki Tsunoda, who do you move to next? You look left, you've got Liam Lawson. You look right, you've got Isaac Hadjar, who's only had 6 races in Formula One. Okay, they've been very good 6 races, but 6 races nonetheless. And that's the problem they had with Liam Lawson, is he only had 10 or so races. What was it, 10 or 11 races? They chucked him into the main team and he couldn't adapt. Isaac Hadjar, if he's had, 14 races by the time the summer break comes around, are you expecting him to be able to adapt after just 14 races? Like, I know it's 3 more than Liam Lawson had, I guess, but still a pretty tough ask considering how experienced Yuki Tsunoda is. What time is it starting? We're about 20 minutes away from the beginning of the Grand Prix. Tsunoda, Hamilton, Leclerc, Antonelli all out before Q3. Such a disappointment. I mean, I really enjoyed it. 6 midfield teams in that top 10. Okay, yes, it was still the top 4 that you would expect when it came to qualifying. In your 2 McLarens, you got your George Russell and your Max Verstappen there. But I think opening up that part of the grid to those midfield teams where usually we see 2 of the top sort of 10 made up of those midfield characters, 6 of them in there. It was really nice to see the twos and fros and how they actually got on with qualifying. And we can look at the grid as it was, Alonso coming out on top, then Albon and Sainz. Williams have had a really good start to the season. So the fact that they're both in the mix once again, I think we're going to see a real tussle in and amongst there. Lance Stroll qualifying just behind in Aston Martin as well. Isaac Hadjar, as we just touched upon, has had a very good start to the season. Has he been, second seat Red Bull worthy? Maybe not, but a very good start to the season nonetheless. And I think you're looking at those 5 cars in there, they're all going to know that this might be their opportunity to get some real big points on the board. You've only got to look at Alpine last year. That double podium finish in Brazil completely changed the complexion of their entire season. Just one out of the 24 races. If it goes your way and you can pick up those ridiculous points totals that usually you're fighting for a maximum of 3 points over the weekend, if you can score, 30, 10 times the amount that you're usually fighting for in one race, you are having an absolutely exceptional time. And with the fact that Piastri and Verstappen are going to get pretty close to one another, maybe Russell versus Norris down towards turn 1, turn 2 as well. Turn 2, turn 3, sorry. I always forget turn 1 is just like a weird kink. It's not really a turn, but it counts. So turn 2, turn 3. And I think, there may be a chance at a shock podium here. A shock podium is not out of the realms of possibility, especially because there might be safety cars. There's going to be drivers that make mistakes. We saw Yuki Tsunoda and Franco Colapinto in the barriers yesterday. What's to say somebody won't do that during the race also? It's going to be fun. It's going to be the most entertaining race I think we've had so far this season. And I think especially because if we can get those tires to actually give us a little bit of strategy nuance rather than it just being a really obvious one stop, or even if it is just an obvious one stop, but maybe there's a bit of okay, maybe you can swap onto the hards or the mediums or the softs at some point as well. Like actual strategy would be incredible. Like this has all the recipe is there for a brilliant Imola Grand Prix. Hi, I'm 8 and I'm new. Welcome. I suppose. Colapinto yesterday made my heart stop. 1994 PTSD. I think the cars are a lot safer than they were last, how many, 30 years ago now. Then we saw that with the Yuki Tsunoda crash more than anything. Weather report looking pretty sunny, to be honest with you. Let me have a look at the actual. So track temperature, 45.3 degrees Celsius. Air temperature, 23.9. No humidity, really. 37% humidity. Rain, not a chance at the moment. So it's looking sunshine and dry race throughout at the moment. Who do I think will win the race? I am very biased towards Oscar Piastri winning this race. Wouldn't mind Lando Norris winning it either, don't get me wrong. If it's not one of those two, Carlos Sainz. If I have to pick one, Carlos Sainz out of that midfield bunch. Maybe Fernando Alonso, Maybe Fernando Alonso. Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, I know what you mean, Antonio. It was down to that corner. But I think the Yuki Tsunoda crash was the one that got me. Like, as soon as I saw that Red Bull flip over, I was like, oh, God, this could be really quite dramatic, especially because I thought he'd sort of hit the catch fence at one point, but I don't think he quite got that far over. I think because the front end of the car caught the barriers before that, he sort of managed to flip back over again. Since we had a Grand Prix that was a sensible time for India. Yeah, I do appreciate that. This European stint is great for the Europeans out there. I had to get up pretty early for Japan and China. They were not the easiest races to watch in the UK, but I can appreciate that. Yeah, now we're in this European stint in the middle of the season. It's pretty nasty for the rest of the world. Red Bull have reported a floor problem with Yuki Tsunoda's car. Not attached properly due to the crash. Ooh, I will keep an eye on that. I haven't actually heard that. I know that they were having problems putting his car back together again, having upgraded parts for this weekend. They're having to replace, so Yuki Tsunoda isn't going to be running like a fully up to spec Red Bull. They've had to gather some parts from here, there, and everywhere because with the cost cap regulations, you can't make 6 of everything in the hopes that even if they do crash, you've still got spares upon spares upon spares. You'd have to be a little bit sparing with the with the parts, that you make over the course of a season. And I think that's why, Yuki Tsunoda is going to have a pretty tough afternoon from 20th place. If he can get up into the points, I think that would be, your dream scenario. But even then, it's not looking amazing. We'll look at the Drivers' Championship and Constructors' Championship before we get started as we listen to the Italian national anthem there. on the grid in Imola. 15 minutes to run. As a Ferrari fan, I'm praying for a miracle. It is certainly going to be a miracle. I think even Charles Leclerc was saying he needs something absolutely drastic to happen if he's going to finish anywhere close to where he was expecting to finish coming into this Imola Grand Prix weekend, especially with Ferrari bringing an upgrade to this Grand Prix. It just really hasn't happened, has it? Really hasn't clicked for Ferrari this season. And we touched on it a little bit yesterday, so I won't go over it too much. But it is so disappointing that they were so good at the end of last year, and Charles Leclerc looked like one of the best drivers on the entire grid, if not the best driver on the entire grid for a good 8-10 races last year. They just haven't been able to translate that into any kind of form coming into this season, and we're a quarter of the way through 2025. Lewis Hamilton, 7th in the standings, 7 points off Kimi Antonelli. Charles Leclerc, 5th in the standings, half the points of Lando Norris, let alone Oscar Piastri, who's leading the championship. And it just looks all over for Ferrari, especially considering they have, 2.5 times less the points of McLaren in the Constructors' Championship as well. They were right there with McLaren for the Constructors' Championship at the end of last year, and now only having 94 points to McLaren's 246, with that gap only looking like it's going to increase. Just feels like it's a massive disappointment for Ferrari in 2025. You never know, though. 2026, their year, maybe that year. Oscar Piastri, though, does lead the championship by that 26-point margin. That is the turning point, isn't it? So even if Oscar Piastri does get into trouble today and Lando Norris manages to win the Grand Prix, he would still be behind Piastri by a point. So he does have that little margin. No, wait, I've completely done the maths there. It's 16 points between the two of them. For some reason, I was looking at Lando Norris and I thought he had 105 points. 115 points. So completely scrap what I just said. Oscar Piastri does need to score at least 10 points to guarantee that he maintains the lead in the championship, as Lando Norris can score 25. But it's looking more likely that Oscar Piastri will be the man leading this race for the majority of it anyway. Maybe we'll see a Saudi Arabia-style move where Max Verstappen maybe is able to get the lead going into the first corner. But I would imagine that Oscar Piastri and the McLaren car will have the pace over the course of 61 laps, especially because, looking at where they were quicker, it was the second half of the lap yesterday where the McLaren car was making it count. And that just means, going into that final couple of sectors or final sector or so, we can see maybe even if Piastri is behind Verstappen, Piastri will be able to get that momentum through turns 14, 15, 16, 17, carrying that speed and then down towards turn 2. Using the DRS, I think we'll have enough of an advantage in that McLaren. But we know that Max Verstappen is a shrewd operator. So I think that's going to be the real battle we get to see between those two. George Russell starting in the podium places, 4th in the championship. You could argue still within touching distance of a championship fight. If the Mercedes car, say, in Spain were to really turn around and George Russell were to be the number one coming into most weekends in terms of, okay, we're seeing George Russell win race after race after race and start to build a bit of momentum. He's not too far adrift from Piastri and Norris at this point, but it's starting to get towards that point in the season where I think George Russell will fall out of contention for the championship. Behind that, Charles Leclerc feels like his season is already pretty much done. Charles Leclerc will be looking to maybe get some wins under his belt, continue to build his reputation inside of that Ferrari team, but 53 points and, having missed the Chinese Grand Prix effectively after those disqualifications, it's not looking like he's going to be anywhere close. Antonelli between the two Ferraris, the Italian driver between the two Italian cars, and Alex Albon for now still best of the rest. 30 points on the board. Esteban Ocon 16 points adrift. Just goes to show how ridiculously quick Alex Albon has been over the course of the season so far. Like, he really has been incredible. But with everybody in the midfield sort of starting inside the points, it feels like 6 cars from those midfield teams starting inside of the points today. Alex Albon's got his work cut out for him. I think he'll remain in 8th place unless something absolutely mental happens. But you never know. You know, Carlos Sainz is starting to get into the groove of things. If Fernando Alonso and this Aston Martin are really going to start to click and he can get his first points of the season on the board, that 8th place is not yet guaranteed for Alex Albon this season. It's getting close. He's getting into that Fernando Alonso territory that we saw last year, where it was just guaranteed where he was going to finish, but not quite yet. I mean, even Yuki Tsunoda down there on 9 points, having moved over to Red Bull after for the Japanese Grand Prix, still hasn't quite sort of made his mark yet, has he? Talking about Adrian Newey. Yeah, Adrian Newey is not working on this year's car. So Aston Martin fans kind of thinking, well, Newey has been the difference here. No, it is an actual Aston Martin upgrade that is finally been an upgrade. And it's looking like, okay, maybe Adrian Newey coming to the team has given them a little bit of a positive spin and given everyone a bit of a G up, but this is not Adrian Newey's work as of yet. We're going to see that on the Aston Martin car next year. Jimmy Sonic, I joined. Thank you for joining. Appreciate it. How do we feel, though, in terms of the Constructors' Championship? Just to super quickly run through that also, although I mentioned it a couple of times there as well. McLaren still leading. Looks like their championship to lose over 100-point gap to Mercedes, the second fastest team. Even though Max Verstappen has been the better of the drivers, you would argue, out of Russell versus Verstappen, Antonelli has been able to get much better out of his second Mercedes car than either Lawson or Tsunoda has been able to get out of the second Red Bull car. And that's the thing, right? You have that turning point because Mercedes have 2 drivers. They are going to reap the rewards of that. And again, Ferrari would be ahead of Red Bull had it not been for those disqualifications in China, completely taking away any kind of points and therefore a 6th of the season so far. I do think we might see Ferrari overtake Red Bull. It's just whether or not Max Verstappen can continue to outscore both of the Ferrari cars every single weekend. Like, it's going to be a tough ask, you would argue, but well, this weekend, neither of Ferrari starting in the points, so maybe. Williams look pretty set on a 5th place finish. I think just the quality of their driver lineup paying dividends there as well. I remember doing a video towards the beginning of the season, lots of you guys seeing that Williams driver lineup as better than even some of the top teams. Like, I think Ferrari won out in the end. McLaren were pretty close too, but Williams were in the mix of some of your guys' feelings as the best driver lineup on the grid. Haas just behind with 20 points. Aston Martin will want to close that gap this weekend, considering both of those drivers are starting in the points. Could see Haas drop down to 7th place this weekend. And Racing Bulls at the moment being carried by Isaac Hadjar. Hadjar inside of the point scoring places once again. An incredible start to the season from the Frenchman. Again, those sort of rumors of him replacing Yuki Tsunoda are starting to rear their heads, but I don't think that will be the case. I think Isaac Hadjar is exactly where he needs to be right now and just needs to get his head down and keep going, because he has a brilliant start to the year outside of that spin in Australia, obviously, which was the absolute worst start to the year that he could have. Now, in hindsight, 5 races later, I think we can say Isaac Hadjar has shown he has Formula One quality. Alpine starting their 7th. Jack Doohan still on the list until the end of this Grand Prix, and then Alpine will have themselves 3 drivers. No points for Jack Doohan, though, over the course of the season so far. Replaced by Franco Colapinto after just 6 Grand Prix. Of course, Colapinto only has 5 Grand Prix technically in his race contract, although he does have a 3-year contract with Alpine. So I can't see them replacing Colapinto in 5 races' time, but we'll have to wait and see once we get to Silverstone how that plays out. And Stakes Albert at the bottom of the pack at the moment. Why is Doohan on the list? Still, technically, Doohan is the Alpine driver because we haven't got to the end of the race yet. So once the classification comes out, Franco Colapinto will be the secondary Alpine driver. It's a bit of a weird one. Like, for instance, like all of the cars that DNF'd in Australia weren't technically like classified in the championship. It's a bit of a weird way how Formula One does it. But yeah, he is not yet classified in the championship yet. He will be as long as he gets to the end of this Grand Prix, or at least gets the majority of the way through this Grand Prix. Isaac goes to Red Bull. I think it's a little bit too early. But we'll have to wait and see. Colapinto not in the team start. Again, I just explained it. He'll be there. He'll be there. Don't you worry. I know that he's there. I understand that Colapinto is in the car. There will be a 21st is what I'm looking at. 21st driver. Apparently HM said the 5 races thing was bunk. Oh. Oh, even though he's the one who said, okay. You never know, do you? It's such a weird one. Have Red Bull fixed their car? Yes. Yuki Tsunoda, though, will be starting from the pit lanes. We can go back to the starting grid for you, as we are now just a couple of minutes away from the beginning of the Imola Grand Prix. 63 laps standing between Oscar Piastri and his 4th race win in a row, his 5th of the season, which would mean he has more wins than Lando Norris, and also would match some records of some absolute legends. He'd match the wins in a row from Jack Brabham, the last Australian to win 4 races in a row, and the last McLaren to win 4 races in a row was Ayrton Senna. He can do it here at Imola. Starting from the back of the grid there, Yuki Tsunoda starts in 20th place and from the pit lane, so you won't be seeing him on the grid. Ollie Behrman, though, after a disappointing disqualification / cancellation of his final lap in Q1, starts from 19th place. Ocon in 18th place, just ahead of him. Nico Hülkenberg will start in 17th. Franco Colapinto had a 1-place penalty for coming out of the pit lane too early yesterday, or coming out of the garage into the pit lane too early yesterday. So he drops to 16th, and Liam Lawson up to 15th place after he had a very disappointing end to Q1. Liam Lawson on a flying lap as that red flag dropped. Gabriel Bortoletto was the winner of that. He starts in 14th place with Kimi Antonelli's Mercedes just ahead of him in 13th. The 2 Ferraris start side by side just outside of this point scoring places with Leclerc and Hamilton in 11th and 12th. Pierre Gasly and Isaac Hadjar had disappointing ends to qualifying, considering they made it all the way to Q3. A little mistake from both of them put them 9th and 10th. Lance Stroll starts in 8th place. The 2 Williams ahead of Albon and Sainz in 7th and 6th, respectively. Fernando Alonso starting best of the rest of the midfield cars in 5th place, which is ridiculous to say, considering how many top quality drivers we have in Formula One and that dominance that we've seen from the top teams in recent years. Lando Norris starting in 4th place for McLaren on the hunt against his teammate. George Russell, though, starts ahead of him in 3rd, and the front row of the grid once again is Max Verstappen in 2nd place with Oscar Piastri on pole position. Those two interchanging pole positions pretty quickly, or pretty consistently, I should say, over the course of the season so far. Let's move over to the race board. And again, I've got options. I've kind of spent some time between Miami and here, so we're going to do another little poll. I've learned from my mistake yesterday. Don't vote in the poll until I've put in all of the options and shown you all of the options. Okay? Okay. Are we happy with that? Or do we understand the assignment? I'm looking at one of you in particular. Okay, so we have 3 different options. We have screen 1, which will also have the sector timings at the bottom once that loads. We have option 2, slightly larger, more driver talk, and the investigations and track limits both there. Or we have option 3, even bigger track board. Still got all of the information there. So the, actually, DRS to say, DRS to say, but I was wondering what that said. It's got the race control messages. It's got the driver radio, but a little bit smaller, and the investigations there as well. So 1, 2, or 3. Again, 1, 2, 3. You have the formation lap to make your decision. Formation lap has begun. Oscar Piastri leading the cars down towards turn 2, which is the first major braking zone. One-stop strategy is expected. A lot of the cars deciding to start on the medium tyre here. The first driver starting on the hard all the way down in 12th place is Lewis Hamilton. Antonelli also starting on the hard compound tyre. Franco Colapinto comes onto the radio to actually thank the Alpine team for their decision in putting him in the car. And I think also just thanking the team for putting the car back together again. Okay. Ollie Behrman, the final driver to get off of the grid. Yuki Tsunoda, starting from the pit lane, is going to make his way down towards the end of the pit lane. So, going to be an interesting start from Yuki. Formation lap at the moment. Interesting. Pole a little bit closer than I thought it was going to be, but screen 3 has won the pole, I'm afraid. Here we are then. Oscar Piastri just making his way around towards the start-finish line. Of course, you do start ahead of the start-finish line here in Imola. So, in fact, the drivers start a good few meters all the way down towards turn 1, where Oscar Piastri will put his McLaren car on the left-hand side of the track. Has the inside run down towards turn 2, of course, but we do know that Max Verstappen is pretty good off of the line, and Red Bull have been pretty consistently decent with their race starts. Yuki Tsunoda also just making his way around. Ollie Behrman there at the back of the pack. Once everybody has come to a stop, we will get those 5 red lights ready for 63 laps of action here in Imola. There's Yuki Tsunoda peeling off into the pit lane, where he will start the Grand Prix. It's quite a long pit lane for Yuki Tsunoda to make his way all the way down as the rest of the cars come to a stop. And we're going to get going here in Imola. Green flag is waved at the back of the grid. The drivers are ready to go. And 5 red lights start to illuminate. And we're underway then. Oscar Piastri gets a really good start, actually. And actually, it's George Russell who is on the left-hand side of Max Verstappen as they come through turn 1 and down towards turn 2. Russell has got the inside line here. Verstappen, though, tries to go around the outside and get on the inside of Piastri for 3. And Verstappen makes an incredible lunging move down towards turn 3 to get ahead of Piastri. Verstappen takes the lead. Russell slots into 3rd place and stays where he was. Norris is up to 4th. Alonso, Sainz, Albon have continued on. Charles Leclerc and Isaac Hadjar have swapped positions. Gabriel Bortoleto is having a little bit of a battle with Liam Lawson, has managed to maintain 14th place for now. Colapinto has dropped a position to Esteban Ocon behind. It was a stunning move from Max Verstappen, just really late on the brakes, down towards turn 2, round the outside of turn 2 and in towards the inside of turn 3. Verstappen knew exactly what he was doing there and gets himself ahead of Oscar Piastri once more. It is one of those things we've seen a couple of times. It was in Miami. Verstappen managed to get himself up ahead of Lando Norris. Piastri backing out of this one also, and Piastri understanding that over the course of the race, he doesn't need to battle with Verstappen and put himself in the gravel or out of this Grand Prix. He can let Verstappen lead for now. Verstappen comes across the line to start lap 2. 1st place for him. It's Piastri, Russell, Norris, Alonso, Sainz, Albon, Stroll, Gasly and Leclerc in the point-scoring places. Leclerc up into 10th place after Isaac Hadjar lost a couple of positions off the start. Started 9th down to 11th now. Antonelli has gotten the better of Lewis Hamilton, and Esteban Ocon has actually decided to come into the pits and pit very early on indeed, maybe gambling on a safety car happening at some point. Max Verstappen kept his wheels on the racetrack. It was a very nice move indeed. But yeah, Oscar did kind of leave the left-hand side of the track a little bit open. I think was more worried about covering off the inside at turn 2. I think just also Verstappen was so far back. Verstappen was alongside George Russell, not really alongside Oscar Piastri, but just trusted himself to carry the momentum of that Red Bull through. And Verstappen now up into first place, Piastri down to second. And Ocon deciding to pit on the first lap of the Grand Prix. We'll see what kind of pace he has got at the back of the pack as we're going to see the lap times come in. The first full lap of racing. And lap 3 begins here in Imola. Esteban Ocon, as you can see, down in turn 14, 15. But is going to slowly creep up on the rest of the pack. And if there is a safety car or something goes wrong, he's already made his stop. So Ocon hoping to maybe go all the way to the end on one set of tyres. As he said, he didn't need to battle it out. That's very true. Oscar Piastri did make it aware that he kind of knows he didn't need to do anything drastic down in towards turn 2. Verstappen then got the better of that. Kimi Antonelli fighting with Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc pushing Pierre Gasly wide, and Gasly's into the gravel, and that is going to be heartbreaking for Pierre Gasly. He's going to fall down the order pretty consistently, and Gasly has dropped all the way down to 14th place. Did really well to keep that Alpine car running as Charles Leclerc ushered him into the gravel. There's going to be a lot of damage to the underside of that Alpine car, though, and those tyres are going to have seen better days after bouncing around in the gravel. Charles Leclerc, though, up into 9th place. Isaac Hadjar also back up into the point-scoring places. Gasly now behind Gabriel Bortoleto in 14th. And Max Verstappen comes around once again, actually elongates his lead just a touch. Still a second and a half clear of Oscar Piastri, who's then another second and a half ahead of George Russell. Lando Norris, though, keeping right under the rear wing of the Mercedes car, Norris with DRS. Fernando Alonso also within DRS range of the top 4. Carlos Sainz and Alex Albon in a little bit of a DRS train. Everybody is very closely packed together at the moment. And in this DRS train, it's Lando Norris who obviously has the advantage, but Alonso, Sainz, Albon, Stroll, Leclerc, Hadjar will all be hoping that this can get broken and they can start to really battle one another. Everybody's super condensed still. As you can see, when Gasly went off the track, he didn't just lose one position, he lost about 5. He's so very tightly packed. Esteban Ocon, 121.4 in the clean air. So Ocon is doing the similar kind of lap times to Verstappen and Piastri. And that's why they decided to pit early, get those new tyres on. And it's a gamble for the Haas team, don't get me wrong, but a gamble that we have seen play out a couple of times. I remember Alex Albon in Australia did a similar kind of tactic for Williams, just went for the one-stop really early, almost no-stop strategy and managed to snag a couple of points a couple of years ago. Maybe Esteban Ocon deciding that's going to be the best thing for him this afternoon. Little replay, though. As you can see, Max Verstappen is actually under pressure from George Russell. Piastri gets away incredibly well, and Russell is actually running second as they go down towards turn 2. But then Max Verstappen, the latest of late breakers, just really dive bombs up the inside into turn 3, carries so much momentum through turn 2, and trusts Oscar Piastri to not collide with him. George Russell would have actually had the much better start had he not then got caught up behind Piastri. Russell then, and George Russell not very happy with Oscar Piastri at all. I think everybody realizing that Piastri could have maybe fought a little bit harder. Franco Colapinto is looking not ridiculously quick. And you can see actually fell away a couple of positions right at the start there, did Franco Colapinto. He's managed to get back up ahead of Ollie Behrman, but Colapinto still stuck behind Nico Hulkenberg. Oof. And that was just Pierre Gasly sent into the gravel, the dust flying across the track as the Alpine trying to find its way back onto the tarmac and managed to just about do that. Gasly, though, still down in 14th place. Gabriel Bortoleto has fallen away from the back of Lewis Hamilton, so Gasly will have the DRS advantage on the Stakes Sauber car, but still a big DRS train all the way back from George Russell, Norris, Alonso, Sainz, Albon, Stroll, Leclerc, Hadjar, Antonelli, Hamilton, all within DRS range of one another. The grid still really tightly compacted together. Six laps have gone. Oscar Piastri still biding his time, it feels like. A second and a half adrift of Verstappen. We know that Verstappen has got the ability to win here. He's done it a few times before. Hello, Mr. Random. How's it going? Does make you wonder. Maybe we're going to see Charles Leclerc, actually, though, saying that the tyres are better than expected. I was going to say maybe we'll see the hard compound tyre guys coming into their own in a little bit, but Charles Leclerc saying that the mediums are going better than he thought. So maybe the medium tyre is going to last a lot longer, and those who started on the hard compound tyre are going to be at a slight disadvantage overall. How did Verstappen overtake Piastri? Down in towards turn 3, right at the beginning of the race. Was on the outside at turn 2, lunged up the inside of turn 3, and Piastri backed out of it. Caused a little bit of frustration from George Russell, who was alongside Verstappen and thought that he'd be able to get himself up to second place. But instead, Russell stays third, and it's Piastri who misses out on a position as Verstappen gains. Lando Norris still with DRS to the Mercedes car of George Russell ahead. Now starting down this start-finish straight. Can see underneath the rear wing. So close. But not quite there for Lando Norris. Just can't quite get the DRS advantage to really play into his favour yet. Alonso and Sainz starting to fall backwards, though, and Alonso is now outside of DRS range of Lando Norris, so the front four have started to escape away from that midfield pack behind. Charles Leclerc still waiting for an opportunity to strike on Lance Stroll. The Aston Martins and the Williamses, though, still the highest scoring midfield teams and still ahead of both of the Ferrari cars. Yuki Tsunoda still all the way at the back of the pack in 19th place. Esteban Ocon, the only car behind him, and Esteban Ocon having pitted already. George Russell under pressure from Lando Norris once again. It's through this final sector. Lando Norris is able to get right underneath the rear wing. Oh, as Franco Colapinto dipped his rear right tyre into the dust in his Alpine debut. And it just feels like Lando Norris, even with the DRS, the straight line speed of the Mercedes car, more than enough to keep Lando Norris at bay. Norris now closer than he has been before, but still isn't able to have a real go at George Russell for now. Lando Norris is going to start getting frustrated there. Will he have a go down towards turn 4, 5? Side by side through 5 and 6. No, not this time though. And George Russell has to close the door and Lando Norris has to back out for now. This battle, though, is going to play into the hands of Verstappen and Piastri as these two tussle behind. It's just meaning that Lando Norris is losing more and more time on the two drivers he really wants to be battling with. George Russell, though, wants to keep that podium place after a very solid start to the season for him at Mercedes. Fernando Alonso, Albon, Sainz, Stroll, still the 4 cars just behind. Alonso back into DRS range of Lando Norris. That's the kind of time that is costing Lando Norris being stuck behind George Russell. Just allowing Alonso back into DRS range once again. And George Russell saying on the radio, doesn't know how he's going to make it to the target lap. Those tyres starting to struggle as he's putting them under extra pressure, keeping Lando Norris at bay. Here they come once again, then down the main straight. Lando Norris, DRS wide open. And down towards turn 2 they go. Lando Norris peels to the right-hand side of the track. George Russell has him covered for now, but Lando Norris does get the better exit out of turn 3. Through turn 4 they go. Into turn 5, Lando Norris is going to look up the inside, gets his tyres onto the dirt, but doesn't get himself ahead of George Russell. And Russell once again able to close the door on his fellow Briton. Fernando Alonso sniffing at the back of the McLaren, hoping for an opportunity. Lando Norris did put his left tyres there onto the dust. Pierre Gasly has to pit in the Alpine car. I do wonder how much damage there was to that Alpine as he bounced his way through the gravel in that battle with Charles Leclerc. He's now dropped behind Esteban Ocon. So Ocon gaining on Gasly already. I know that Ocon pitted very early on, has got a long way to go on those hard tyres, but showing that he's able to get ahead of Gasly is a pretty good sign nonetheless. Still no investigations to play out as of yet, so everybody keeping it very clean on the first 10 laps of this Grand Prix. Let's see if Lando Norris and George Russell will keep it as clean as the tension begins to build. Lando Norris once again then at the start of lap 11 for him. Going down towards turn 2 with George Russell. Is he going to have a look this time into the first chicane? He does have a little look, but isn't able to do it this time. Rue turn 4 they go. You can see that the McLaren is just carrying a lot more speed. Tries to go around the outside at turn 5 and into turn 6. He's going to have the advantage, and Lando Norris able to get that little move done, and up in front of George Russell he goes. Lando Norris now ahead of George Russell and into third spot. He is those 7 seconds adrift of his teammate Piastri. And that's the time that has cost Lando Norris in that battle. George Russell, though, has been really stressing those tyres, and Fernando Alonso now looks to make an opportunistic move as Russell was all out of shape thanks to that battle with Lando Norris. He's going to be right underneath him. And Gasly, yep, has indeed pitted. Liam Lawson has now decided to pit too. So we are starting to see those cars coming in and swapping tyres. Charles Leclerc, maybe the most... Oh, my goodness. And George Russell is going to box early too. Box for George Russell. And he does come in. That does release Fernando Alonso. There's a Williams car that also peels in. It's Carlos Sainz behind George Russell, who's come into the pits as well. Everybody going very early indeed. I wasn't expecting the medium tyres to be coming in until around sort of lap 17 to sort of 20 or so. Deciding to go very early indeed. Carlos Sainz from the mediums onto the hards at Williams and out onto the racetrack. George Russell ahead of him. Where are they going to come out? 15th and 16th. But here comes Charles Leclerc. And Charles Leclerc has come out ahead of George Russell. George Russell, remember, was running in 3rd place. Charles Leclerc was running all the way down in 9th. So the early stop, Charles Leclerc has been able to undercut all the way up to George Russell. I know that, you know, the grid was very compact, but that is ridiculous. Looking at where Charles Leclerc has come out compared to the rest of the field, and it looks like the undercut is going to be so incredibly just ridiculous here in Imola. Leclerc now ahead of Russell. Sainz is right underneath the rear wing of the Mercedes car. So Russell and Sainz look to have done a good job there in getting in early. So does Ocon, Gasly and Lawson. As we're now going to see some of the other drivers, Fernando Alonso coming into the pits. It'll be interesting to see if Fernando Alonso still comes out ahead of Carlos Sainz here, because if he does, he's also going to come out ahead of Leclerc and Russell. So keep an eye on where Fernando Alonso is. Gabriel Bortoleto has also come into the pits, but he's not really in contention as it is right now. And no, Fernando Alonso is going to come out, I think, still behind Carlos Sainz. Oh my goodness me. Just side by side with Fernando Alonso and Carlos Sainz going down towards turn 2 and turn 3. The battle for best of the rest, and Fernando Alonso has come out ahead just of Carlos Sainz. So Fernando Alonso having to cover off the Williams there, and does just about. There was millimeters in that between the Aston Martin and the Williams cars there. Gabriel Bortoleto has come out behind Liam Lawson in all of that. Max Verstappen just making his way round towards the top end and through. And Piastri pits. Piastri decides to pit early. Piastri realizes that those tyres on the McLaren are starting to go off. He wants to come in early. And Piastri... Oh, and it's a little bit of a slow stop. The front right taking a little bit longer on Oscar Piastri's car there. And Piastri then is going to fall all the way backwards. Where's Charles Leclerc is who I'm keeping an eye on. Piastri surely comes out ahead of the Ferrari, right? Yes, he does. By a considerable margin, but... It's a little bit touch and go. I was worried about that slow stop there and the fact that the undercut does look to be just absolutely ridiculous. But Piastri, more than enough of a gap to Lando Norris and the rest of the cars behind. So Piastri is now in 12th place. But actually, that's quite a good call, I think, from the McLaren team. As I'm watching the Aston Martin pit crew, Fernando Alonso and Carlos Sainz has actually been able to get the better of Alonso. Oh my goodness me. The front left and right tyres of Fernando Alonso's cars on fire as he came out of the pit lane. Carlos Sainz has been able to get up ahead of Fernando Alonso. So Carlos Sainz now the driver behind George Russell in all of this. And I think those cars that are staying out are going to start to lose out because the lap times from the cars that have pitted still looking a lot better. You know, Charles Leclerc's just done a 121.1. Everyone else, Albon is in the 121s, but Stroll, Hadjar, Antonelli, Hamilton, they're all in the 122s. As Lance Stroll then decides to pit a couple of laps after his teammate. And we have seen that Carlos Sainz has gotten the better of Fernando Alonso. So Carlos Sainz running best of the rest at the moment. But on track, Alex Albon is in third place for Williams. So the Williams car's looking very good indeed. And the strategy is starting to play out a little bit weird here. Oscar Piastri has pitted. Verstappen has stayed out and decided not to try and cover off Oscar Piastri at all. We're seeing Lance Stroll come out behind Pierre Gasly in this. So Gasly has been able to, even though he dropped down to 14th place, come out of the pit stops amongst the Aston Martin cars. Wow, okay. The pit lane, because it's such a long pit stop and because the undercut and the lap time seem to be so much better on the fresh tyres, it does seem insane. Like the undercut here, so dominant. Maybe we're looking at two-stop strategy for some of these cars, though, because this is very early to be coming in. And I know some of the teams are just covering off others, but Charles Leclerc's lap times, as I say, at 121 dead. Like Max Verstappen at the lead is doing 121.2s, but Alex Albon, Hadjar, Antonelli, Hamilton, they're all in the 122s. So they're losing a second a lap to Charles Leclerc in 12th place, who have yet to have pitted. Of course, Antonelli and Hamilton starting on the hard compound tyre. Max Verstappen, though, still leading this Grand Prix. Took the lead down towards turn 3 on lap 1 and hasn't looked back yet. Fernando Alonso is in a little bit of a battle and a tussle here with Carlos Sainz, still trying to be best of the rest. I'm wondering if there was any damage to the front end and the front brakes on that Aston Martin car as he came out of the pits, because they were literally aflame inside of the Aston Martin. Liam Lawson making a move up to 18th place on Gabriel Bortoleto. Not really where he would have wanted to be battling, but where he is nonetheless. His teammate Isaac Hadjar currently running 4th of anybody on the track, but yet to have pitted. average time lost when you pit is around 28 seconds here in Imola. It is a really long pit lane. You come in just after turn 18. You come in just after turn 18. You come out nearly all the way down towards turn 2. It's a really long pit lane here in Imola. And that's why normally we don't see much strategy playing into it, to be honest. But the undercut seems to be ridiculous. I suppose because it is sort of a 27, 28 pit stop, you have the opportunity to really make up that lap time and plan your lap accordingly. And Yuki Tsunoda is just being told to keep Oscar Piastri at bay. Piastri has managed to catch up to the back of this pack of cars which have yet to have pitted. Yuki Tsunoda currently running in 10th place. And Tsunoda, as you can imagine, has just been told, can you keep Oscar Piastri behind you, or at least make it a little bit difficult for the World Championship leader, as Max Verstappen is competing for that victory, although Lando Norris is taking a few tenths out of Max Verstappen each lap now. A 121 from Verstappen, a 120.8 for Lando Norris, and that gap has come down from sort of 10.5 seconds to 9.5 seconds. So Norris maybe getting the last life out of these tyres, but still a long way to go for Lando if he is going to catch up to Max Verstappen in this. And of course, we'll have to wait and see where his teammate Oscar Piastri plays out once the pack is fully shuffled. Oscar Piastri is underneath the rear wing of the other Red Bull, though, now. And Yuki Tsunoda has been asked to make it difficult and is going to make it difficult for Piastri. Piastri down the outside towards turn 2, though, and is able to use the extra grip of those fresher tyres and get past Yuki Tsunoda. Tsunoda did try and make it as awkward as possible, though. Tried to push Oscar Piastri out as wide as he possibly could through turn 2. But Piastri enough inside of that McLaren car to make it look fairly simple, and up into 10th place. 9th place, Ollie Behrman ahead of him. Yeah, Yuki, I think, tried to play the team game, but that McLaren car just so much quicker than the Red Bull Yuki Tsunoda has underneath him. And Piastri able to get past fairly swiftly. Piastri then 32 seconds off the race leader at this point. A 28-second pit stop. So Piastri at the moment would still come out quite far adrift of Max Verstappen. But I don't think Verstappen will want to pit yet, because that 28-second gap would leave him in a little bit of a no man's land between Hülkenberg and Colapinto, and not really with any nice clean air ahead of him, as Piastri is now making his way through the back markers. Let's see if Piastri can make his way past Ollie Behrman this lap then. Behrman doesn't really put up anywhere near as much fight as Yuki Tsunoda, and Piastri actually gets the move done in turn 1, which is not really a turn, but a turn that he gets the move done nonetheless. And Piastri up into 9th place. Colapinto next on the list for the championship leader. Verstappen is still leading, a 20.8 from Verstappen, a 22.1 from Piastri. And this is going to be the problem for Piastri. He's losing a little bit of time now in the traffic here. Needs to dispatch Colapinto, and then Hülkenberg is at least a couple of seconds up the road, so Piastri will have a bit of track to run into. But Max Verstappen going long. Norris, Albon, Hadjar still yet to have pitted on the medium tyres. Antonelli and Hamilton started on the hards. So did Hülkenberg. Colapinto has gone for a very strange strategy on the mediums. Still yet to have spotted there. So yet to have stopped there in 8th place. Behrman and Tsunoda understandably yet to have pitted, because they started on the hards. Leclerc has pitted, Russell has pitted, Sainz has pitted, all behind. So Leclerc now right in the mix for the Ferrari team. That undercut from the Ferrari working out perfectly. And Leclerc now right under the rear wing of Tsunoda, whilst George Russell seems to be really struggling on this hard compound tyre, is now 5 seconds adrift of the Ferrari. So maybe the Ferrari upgrades starting to really click in race trim after a very disappointing qualifying for them yesterday. And he has a little look to Charles Leclerc on Yuki Tsunoda through turn 5 and turn 6, but isn't able to get the move done yet. Charles Leclerc, the fastest man out there, has the fastest lap at the moment. Max Verstappen then is just coming around the final corner to start lap 21 of the race. Still a long way to go. We're a third of the way through the 63 laps here in Imola. And there's a few different battles that are playing out that maybe we wouldn't have expected. Charles Leclerc seems in and amongst it right now. And George Russell, after battling with the top drivers at the beginning of the race, has fallen behind the Ferrari. Carlos Sainz has also been able to get ahead of the Aston Martin of Fernando Alonso. Alonso still ahead of Stroll, though. And that pack of 4 missing Alex Albon, who has continued on and gone very long indeed with the front runners. And it is 20 laps on those medium tyres. Charles Leclerc able to finally dispatch Yuki Tsunoda, going down towards turn 2 with the aid of DRS in that Ferrari car. And Carlos Sainz being told. And Carlos Sainz saying, maybe this should have been a one-stop race if Alex Albon is able to do the lap times that he is. Albon is doing 121.9 from Albon in the last lap, or 121.5 from Carlos Sainz. So Carlos Sainz saying maybe this is a one-stop race. Maybe we've done something a little bit awry. Oscar Piastri, though, championship leader, has gone for the same kind of strategy as you have, Carlos. So let's wait and see. Lewis Hamilton on the radio. And Hamilton saying, we definitely want to undercut these guys. And there's no gap at the moment. Look at where Lewis Hamilton is. If you add 28 seconds to his lap time, he would fall right into the middle of the traffic. So there's no gap for him to really go into and pit. Oscar Piastri then has caught up to the back of Hülkenberg and has dispatched Hülkenberg. And now Piastri has some racetrack to run into. 33 seconds, the gap between Piastri and Verstappen at the moment. But we're going to see some actual lap times from Piastri now and his real pace, because he's got a good 5-second gap to Lewis Hamilton in 5th place in front. So needs to put some lap times in now. This is opportunity for Piastri. And Verstappen is going to have to either cover him off or stick it out and go for a very different strategy. This is where the race could be won or lost for Oscar Piastri, it has to be said. George Russell on the radio. The rear is moving, struggling in a straight line. George Russell really starting to find it difficult inside of that Mercedes car. Just the instability of the rear end completely playing against him and struggling for pace. And if you do look at George Russell's lap times, he's doing okay. Charles Leclerc at 121.8, Russell at 121.9, but falling behind the Ferrari is not what he would have wanted to do as Franco Colapinto comes into the pits. So Franco Colapinto finally pits on the medium tyre. Ollie Behrman versus Charles Leclerc. I don't think Behrman's going to cause Leclerc too much of a headache, considering Behrman will be looking at possibly getting either Leclerc's seat or sitting alongside Leclerc in the near future. And he doesn't indeed. Behrman almost lets Leclerc past, and Leclerc up into 9th place then. And here's a replay of Piastri getting past Hülkenberg. That was a lap or so ago now. It was a 120.9 from Piastri, a 121.4 from Verstappen. So half a second quicker than his current rival for the win here this afternoon. Piastri needs a little bit more than that. Safety car. Oh, a safety car would completely and utterly kill Piastri's race at this point. Because if Verstappen, Norris, Albon, Hadjar, Antonelli, Hamilton would all be able to pit under the safety car, it would play into their hands perfectly. And, you know, Verstappen and Norris in particular would be very, very happy indeed. Sorry, Verstappen and Norris. I thought I said Piastri. Piastri it would play against massively because he's already pitted. Alex Albon's in a little bit of a weird spot. I was just trying to see if Alex Albon pits, he will come out behind his teammate, but possibly still, or possibly ahead of Fernando Alonso. So Carlos Sainz and the Williams car seemingly going, and generally the Williams car looking a lot better than the Aston Martin, even though Alonso started ahead. Looks like the tyres on the Aston Martin car, as they kind of alluded to, has always been their weakness this season, still being that weakness there, as Alonso just can't keep pace with Carlos Sainz now that Sainz has been able to get in front. So that has opened the door for Alex Albon there, and Williams can play this very strategically for a very good finish, it does feel like, with both of their drivers on each of the strategies. Albon going long, Carlos Sainz having pitted in and amongst the rest of the grid. And it is those top 6 that are yet to have pitted. Hulkenberg hasn't stopped yet either. Behrman and Tsunoda also started the race on the hard compound tyre. Everybody else having pits. Alex Albon, though, yeah, as you say, driving incredibly well and keeping those tyres very clean indeed. Another 121.8 from Albon is, of course, nowhere near the pace of the Verstappens and Norrises, but doing a very good job indeed, especially considering Isaac Hadjar behind's in the 122s, Antonelli in the 122s, Hamilton in the 122s. Piastri, though, a 120.6. That's much more like it from Piastri. Another half a second chunked out of Max Verstappen's lead. And that gap between Piastri and Verstappen is now 32.5 seconds. So still more than enough of a space for Verstappen to get in and out of the pits, and still ahead of Piastri for now. Piastri needs a little bit of a miracle here. Just feels like the one-stop strategy is maybe the way to go, as the tyres and the difference in degradation between those front runners in 1, 2, 3, and 4 just doesn't seem to be as big to the cars behind, but we'll keep a little eye on it. Oscar Piastri, though, has to now deal with another bit of traffic. He's caught up to the back of Lewis Hamilton. He sweeps around the outside of Lewis Hamilton at turn 2 and up the inside of turn 3. So Piastri now ahead of Hamilton once more. Antonelli and Hadjar are next up on the list for the Australian. But again, it's just causing Antonelli to have to lose a little bit of track time to Max Verstappen. Verstappen out there in clean air, still a long way behind Colapinto, who's all the way down in 20th place now. Verstappen, Norris, Albon and Hadjar still yet to have pitted on the medium tyre. Antonelli, Hamilton, Hulkenberg, Behrman, Tsunoda are all started on the hards, so they're going a little bit further. Oh, thank you so much, Scott, for the £10 super chat. Massively appreciate that, mate. Thank you, thank you. First time here, great commentary. I appreciate it. I try my best. Oh my goodness me, Piastri getting right under the rear wing of Kimi Antonelli. So I was looking at Franco Colapinto's lap times to see if they're really good. But Antonelli is dispatched. And Piastri now behind the RB of Isaac Hadjar. And again, another driver whose Red Bull allegiances are not going to be helpful for Oscar Piastri here. And Piastri. Oh, Albon on the radio. And Albon on the radio saying, let's not be stupid. So maybe thinking that they should be pitting sometime soon, as the lap times have started to drop for Albon. It was 122.4 in the Williams car. Looking at Carlos Sainz, though, was matching him on a 122.4. Alonso, 122.4. So it's not like Albon is doing any slower than the cars that he's battling with. And maybe Albon just starting to get a little bit nervous inside of that Williams car. And Williams realizing that maybe if they can just eke out a few more laps, they can guarantee that Albon will come out ahead of Carlos Sainz. They have a little bit less of a headache to deal with inside of the Williams garage, because if he comes out behind Sainz, Albon's going to be on the quicker tyre, and they're going to have to deal with that probably with some team orders. No team orders between Piastri and Hadjar, although it couldn't have made it look easier as Oscar Piastri moves himself up into 4th place. Piastri is rattling through and is still 32 seconds off Verstappen. So still 4 seconds, that gap. And you'd imagine when Verstappen does pit, it's going to be quite a big gap for Piastri to still make up, especially on 14-lap-old tyres. So it feels like Verstappen is playing in, and it's going to be Lando Norris to pit. Box for Lando. Where's that going to put Lando Norris? He's about 10 seconds behind the leader, so add 28 to that is 38. He's going to come out ahead of Leclerc, but not by much, actually. Considering where Charles Leclerc was before all of these pit stops, it feels like he will come out in and around where Hamilton and Leclerc are, possibly between the two Ferraris, if I had to guess, just off the times. And considering Leclerc was running down in 9th place and Lando Norris was in there. There goes Lewis Hamilton, and he is indeed. Oh, there's a yellow flag. It's Esteban Ocon down towards turn 7. And let's have a little look. Can we catch Esteban Ocon? He's come to a stop, has Esteban Ocon. And if you're a Max Verstappen fan, this is absolutely perfect. If there is a safety car here, Ocon has been told to stop the car. Ocon has pulled off to the side of the road, and it is a virtual safety car, which will play perfectly into Max Verstappen's hands, because he won't lose the 28 seconds in the pit stop anymore. He will only lose about 20. Surely Max Verstappen is going to pit, and he does indeed. Peels into the pit lane. Verstappen box. And this has played perfectly into Verstappen's hands, because Lando Norris has just pitted. Oscar Piastri has pitted a while ago. And now Verstappen is going to come out still in the lead of this race. Where's Alex Albon in this? If Alex Albon can also get to the pits before the virtual safety car ends, it will be perfect for him as well. Verstappen is going to come out with such a sizable lead here over the two McLaren cars, and it's looking almost guaranteed now that Max Verstappen is on for the victory here in Imola. Looking at Albon. Albon has been able to come around. The virtual safety car is still out, and Albon is into the pits. Leclerc on the radio. And he says, and Charles Leclerc on the radio is not very happy at all. He knows that this hasn't played into his hands, because he can see that Albon's pitting, Hadjar's pitting, Antonelli's pitting too. Leclerc comes in. Hulkenberg comes in also. So everybody deciding to get that pit stop done. And we're going to see some very weird positionings of cars now as they come out of the pits. Isaac Hadjar has also played an absolutely blinding hand here in the RB. He's going to come out ahead of Kimi Antonelli. Fernando Alonso, I think, is up now into 8th spot between the two Ferraris. Lance Stroll is also going to gain because the Aston Martins decide against pitting. Everybody else decides to come in under the virtual safety car conditions. So Leclerc for his second stop of the race. Russell for a second stop also. Carlos Sainz has pitted there for the Williams team also, I suppose covering off the rest, but he's going to now look at the fact that Alex Albon is all the way up in 4th place, and the Spaniard probably not going to be overly happy to see himself in 15th. So it's played perfectly into those cars that waited and waited. You know, your Verstappens, your Norris pitted a little bit too early, I guess, but Verstappen, Albon, Hadjar, Antonelli, Hamilton, they have all gained a huge amount by pitting under the virtual safety car rather than pitting during racing. Virtual safety car is still there. The only thing that could save this for Piastri is a full safety car. That would then allow Piastri to at least catch up to the back. Piastri is going to pit, so actually he's covering off and coming in. So Piastri then into the pits for McLaren, realizing that those tires aren't going to go to the end probably, and having to swap onto another set of hards. So it's 2 pit stops, and that I think is going to put the Williams of Alex Albon into the podium places. Williams fans, hold on to your seats. You are halfway through the Imola Grand Prix, and you have got Alex Albon into 3rd place. Lando Norris, 27 seconds adrift of the race leader, Max Verstappen. It is going to be almost just a comfortable victory for Max Verstappen at this point. Charles Leclerc trying to have a little look at Lance Stroll. Leclerc realizing that he's been absolutely screwed over once again by this virtual safety car. Virtual safety car has now ended, and we are seeing some racing once more with Leclerc going side by side with Lance Stroll, looking up the inside of the Aston Martin car. The frustration getting to Leclerc. He's going for it in places you wouldn't expect to see overtakes happen, but he's gone for it nonetheless. Here's the onboard of what happened to Ocon. Oh my, yeah, that engine did not sound healthy at all. And the team on the radio telling him, we've got a problem. Pull off to the side of the road. Stop the car. Stop the car. It's just completely come to a stop as he's coming out of the exit of turn 7. Oh my goodness me. George Russell nearly rammed into the back end of Ollie Behrman during the pit stop phase. There was some cars coming in and out of the pits as well. We might see some investigations for some interesting maneuvers inside of the pit lane there. We'll have to wait and see. Oh my goodness me. Antonelli just about coming out in front of Hamilton, and Hadjar also just about coming out ahead of Antonelli. Antonelli, though, all under the rear wing of the RB. He's going to have DRS as well. These two were battling in Formula 2 last year. We now get to see them side by side in Formula 1. Isaac Hadjar ahead of Kimi Antonelli. Antonelli right under the rear wing of the RB. It's going to be sooner rather than later that we're going to see these two have a proper fight. Ollie Behrman has come into the pits once again, and maybe the Haas team have a problem with their second car as well, because it's been a very, very long pit stop for Ollie Behrman. Maybe he's decided to come to a stop also. Have to wait and see. So Verstappen now leads. It is a 20-second lead from Lando Norris in second. Lando Norris setting a lap time half a second quicker than Verstappen. I mean, if he can do that for the next 30 laps, then he will be within touch and distance of Verstappen in, 40 laps time. So that's not going to work out for Lando Norris. It's looking like a pretty comfortable victory now. If Verstappen can just keep the lap times matching, or even just, anywhere near Lando Norris's times behind. Alex Albon is in a very nice position indeed. Charles Leclerc battling with Fernando Alonso now and gets the better of him. Leclerc up into 8th place, and Leclerc now behind his teammate by 3.5 seconds. We could see a nice little Ferrari battle here if Charles Leclerc can speed up and get to within a couple of seconds of his teammate. That virtual safety car has completely shaken up the order, hasn't it? And completely ruined the race for a lot of those cars that did go for the early pit stop. Verstappen, an absolute winner from it. So's Albon, Hadjar, Antonelli, and Hamilton. Look at where they are now compared to where they were before the pit stops at the beginning of the race. Carlos Sainz, also the frustration starting to show inside of that Williams. He's putting Yuki Tsunoda to the sword, and oh my goodness me, Tsunoda, I think, touched with Carlos Sainz down in towards turn 2. I think there's a little bit of a bump. Nothing massive, I don't think, for Carlos Sainz in that bump with Yuki Tsunoda, but the Williams up ahead of the Red Bull. Oscar Piastri now sets the fastest lap of the race with a 1:19.7. So he is going to be clambering to try and catch up to the back of at least Alex Albon and salvage a podium here. After being in contention for the victory, starting on pole position, it's looking like third is going to be the best it can get for Oscar Piastri. Again, unless there is some kind of twist in the tail, a safety car would be the only thing that would really get anybody into contention with Max Verstappen at this point, as he comes across the start-finish line to start lap 35. He is still 19 seconds ahead of second place Lando Norris. That's usually a pit stop, obviously, in Imola. 28 seconds the pit stop here, but it's almost a pit stop ahead of Lando Norris on any other track. George Russell down in 11th place. Again, that virtual safety car completely playing against the likes of George Russell in this, having started in contention for the podiums and going down in towards turn 2. It felt like George Russell might be able to take second place off Verstappen. Completely reversed. Verstappen then took the lead, and it's completely changed since then. No further investigation on the Tsunoda-Sainz collision as well, by the way. The first investigation the stewards have had to do this afternoon. It's been a pretty laid-back Grand Prix for them so far. Will it excite as we go down towards turn 2 with George Russell and Lance Stroll? And Lance Stroll has to give way. George Russell up into 10th place then. And Lance Stroll having a little look at George Russell, but not able to get past the Mercedes car, as the Mercedes does move up into the point scoring places. Kimi Antonelli now a few positions ahead of his teammate in all of this. Starting on the hard compound tyre, a stroke of genius from Lewis Hamilton and Kimi Antonelli, as Hamilton is now catching the back of Isaac Hadjar's RB. Hadjar gained massively, but Hamilton is now on the medium tyre compared to Isaac Hadjar on the hard. And he'll see the red Ferrari closing in. Lewis Hamilton now looks in a much better position than he was before that virtual safety car, which completely changed the complexion of the race. Hamilton then DRS wide open, down under the rear wing of Isaac Hadjar, peels to the right-hand side of the track, down towards turn 2, is going to have more than enough to get past Isaac Hadjar before they even reach turn 2. And Lewis Hamilton up into 5th place, as George Russell, his old teammate, is also making moves behind, and he's now up ahead of Fernando Alonso. Lance Stroll has also been dispatched by Nico Hülkenberg. So the Aston Martins now having an absolute nightmare of a time. Both of the Aston Martins did pit, stayed out. Oh, my goodness me. It's not played into their hands at all. Oscar Piastri, once again, the fastest man out there, but still only 0.3 quicker than Verstappen at the top of the timing sheets. And Oscar Piastri is going to have a very, very long few laps, it does feel like. Maybe we'll get past Alex Albon, but then after that, we'll just have to rue the fact that that virtual safety car came out when it did. Maybe Oscar Piastri will head down to Haas to see what really happened. It's a replay of George Russell moving up into 9th place. Has finally got ahead of the midfieldy pack that he was within. But Charles Leclerc is now 9 seconds up the road from George Russell. So Russell now feels like he's kind of got as far as he can with a 9th place finish. Nowhere near the podium place he thought he might have. Carlos Sainz also was up in the point scoring places and running fairly comfortably at the beginning of this Grand Prix. That's 12th place for him now, as he now gets past Lance Stroll. And Hamilton reminding the team, though, that even though he has done a good job and getting an awesome from the team, he has used up quite a bit of tyres to get there, and he is only on the mediums. Max Verstappen seemingly coasting now to a fairly comfortable victory. He's a tenth of a second slower than Lando Norris, but 26 laps left. A tenth of a second is not going to get Norris anywhere close to leading this Grand Prix. Alex Albon, third place at the moment. Oscar Piastri, though, will be right underneath the rear wing of the Williams. Doesn't feel like a podium is going to play out for Alex Albon in this one, unfortunately, but still a very, very high point scoring place for Alex Albon once again, and his domination of the midfield in the Drivers' Championship. And Charles Leclerc getting up to Antonelli and absolutely slingshotting his way past Kimi Antonelli as well. Charles Leclerc now up into 7th place, and the two Mercedes cars in 8th and 9th. Not very happy at all. Oh, thank you for the super chat, GameStar70. Just joined the race, came from the office. Please recap why Max and Norris is 1-2, Piastri at P4. A virtual safety car, basically. Piastri pitted early, decided to go for a different strategy, and then a virtual safety car as Esteban Ocon's car came to a stop at turn 7, completely changed the complexion of the race. Verstappen, Norris, Albon, Hadjar, Hamilton, they'd all gone incredibly long on their first stints, and then could pit under the virtual safety car, saving themselves 10 seconds or so. And then Piastri had to cover off and pit under the virtual safety car as well, because it gains you sort of 10 seconds here in Imola. It's a massive gain pitting under the virtual safety car. And everybody who stayed out longer and gambled on a safety car or virtual safety car played perfectly into their hands. Verstappen leading the race by 18.5 seconds to Lando Norris. Lando Norris pitting literally a lap before the safety car came out. So played against Lando Norris in all of this, but second place finish nonetheless. Here comes Nico Hülkenberg looking for a point scoring position for the Stakes Sauber team, and Fernando Alonso is standing still. Nico Hülkenberg zooms past, and a wonderful one. We need a full safety car to revive this race. Yeah, it's, well, at least at the top end. At the bottom here, you've got Hülkenberg and Sainz, both absolutely scything their way through back up towards the point-scoring places. Hülkenberg has come to life on these medium tyres. It's now up into 10th place and looking like points are on the cards for the Stakes Sauber team. That would put them equal on points with Alpine. Back up into 7th. In fact, if I got the championship standings for both. So as it stands, Piastri would still lead, as Piastri also has just made a move past Alex Albon. Piastri down towards turn 3, gets past Alex Albon and is there. Williams can breathe a sigh of relief. That turn 7 incident for Albon has played out. Aston Martin, yeah, falling away massively at this point, but the investigation on Albon has played out, and the investigation on Sainz, no further action for either. So, as I was saying, Piastri would still lead the championship, 15 points on the board, but that Verstappen, 25 points for him, does put him just, again, still within contention of the championship. Never say never when it comes to Max Verstappen in all of this. Hadjar is the massive gainer from the midfield pack, jumps Yuki Tsunoda in terms of points, by the way, and goes up to 11th in the championship. Nico Hülkenberg gaining a point would also jump him up into 13th place. Then when it comes to the Constructors' Championship, Racing Bull's the real winner this weekend at the moment. They jump up into 7th, and as I say, Kick Sauber would get themselves on equal points with Alpine and actually put themselves ahead of Alpine in the championship. But still 22 laps to play out here in Imola. So don't count your chickens just yet. Max Verstappen catching up to the back of Gabriel Bortoleto. Ollie Behrman's pit stop, and a very long pit stop, has put him between the two McLaren cars. Here comes Charles Leclerc on Isaac Hadjar, and Isaac Hadjar just doesn't have the grip to deal with the Ferrari. Charles Leclerc has really come to life in this car Seems like the race pace of the Ferrari is so much better than they had in qualifying yesterday. And it just goes to show, if they would have had a decent qualifying yesterday, maybe the Ferraris would have been properly in the mix, because Charles Leclerc has just absolutely rattled his way through these back of the pack cars. Nico Hülkenberg now under pressure from Carlos Sainz as well, just behind in that final point scoring place. Carlos Sainz seeing his teammate up in 4th spot, thinking, well, that could have been me if we'd have done the same strategy. But Albon got the better strategy. The virtual safety car played into Albon's favour perfectly. And Albon is the winner of the two Williamses at this moment in time. Just coming across the start-finish line in 4th place behind Piastri. Hamilton, Leclerc, Hadjar are all making their way round the final corner. Charles Leclerc is gaining on his teammate. I did wonder if we'd get to see a little bit of a Ferrari head-to-head. Seems like it might just play out. Charles Leclerc a half a second quicker than his teammate on that last lap. On the harder tyre as well. Hamilton on the medium. Just feels like Leclerc has found his voice all of a sudden and is screaming his way through the pack. Here comes Carlos Sainz on Nico Hülkenberg for that final point scoring position. Carlos Sainz, the frustration inside of the Williams car, but now gets ahead of Nico Hülkenberg and can run away down towards turn 5 and turn 6 ahead of the green Stake Sauber car. So Carlos Sainz is back up into the point scoring places, but still 7.5 seconds adrift of George Russell in 9th place ahead. So that feels like as good as it's going to get for Carlos Sainz, as long as he can keep Nico Hülkenberg at bay, as Hülkenberg, I'm sure, will try and come back at him. And Verstappen then still running around. Lando Norris is sort of a 10th or 2 quicker per lap, generally speaking. But again, just 18.5 seconds the gap. Max Verstappen is going to be one of the more comfortable victories of his Formula One career, it feels like. I know he's had some comfortable ones in the past. Looking back at 22 and 23, the domination that we saw from that Red Bull car, but even without that domination, everything's played into its favour. And Fernando Alonso still so unlucky. Just saying on the radio, how is it so unlucky? How do we get that virtual safety car just at the point it does, and it wrecks the entire race for him? And it has completely. You can look Fernando Alonso all the way down in 13th place, having started in 5th. And that virtual safety car has basically ruined the race for so many drivers. It's ridiculous. Franco Colapinto being told to swap positions with his teammate. Gasly catching up to the back of him. 22 points Verstappen would be off Oscar Piastri in the World Championship. So still within a race victory of Oscar Piastri 7 races into the year. And everything in Spain with the shake-up of the front wing regulations could be something a little bit special from Max Verstappen. Once again, could we see a 5th World Championship for the Dutchman? He's just done exactly what he needs to at the beginning of this season. Every single time the Red Bull car hasn't quite been as good as the McLarens, he's been able to find a 10th or 2 and keep himself in touching distance. Today he's been rewarded with that virtual safety car playing perfectly into his hands. And he's just, again, sneaking enough points under the carpet that if we do get into Spain and suddenly there is a massive change in the running order and McLaren suddenly aren't anywhere near as quick as they have been over the course of the first 6 races of the season, Verstappen is the driver again that's going to be knocking on the door. He's been the hunted rather than the hunter over the last few seasons, but if there's one driver you don't really want to be looking at in your wing mirrors in the World Championship, it's probably Max Verstappen. 20-second gap to each of the McLaren drivers. Yes, it's all played out perfectly for Verstappen, really, hasn't it? Piastri went for the different strategy. He got caught out by the virtual safety car. Lando Norris went for the same strategy as Verstappen, but pitted literally a lap or two before the virtual safety car. So that cost him another 10 seconds, cost Piastri another 20 seconds. And it's just put both of them nowhere near Max Verstappen in this one. Lando Norris just making his way around turn 14, 15. Verstappen's already starting the next lap of the race. Piastri, not even worth talking about, down into turn 12 whilst Verstappen was going across the start-finish line. Carlos Sainz is... Oh, and Kimi Antonelli's going slowly. Kimi Antonelli going very slowly indeed out of turn 7. What's happened there to Kimi Antonelli? Because he's dropped to George Russell. Russell has now gotten up into 8th place. Antonelli's now down. And Antonelli's saying that he's got an issue on the radio. He's got an issue and he's come to a stop almost exactly where Esteban Ocon came to a stop as well. And that has completely shuffled Antonelli out of the top 10 and put Nico Hülkenberg up in there as well. Yellow flag. The Ferraris are out just in case there is another safety car. The yellow flags are just being waved down there. And safety car deployed. A full safety car. Not a virtual safety car this time. A full safety car has been deployed as Kimi Antonelli has come to a stop. I mean, considering it was only a virtual safety car for Ocon and Kimi Antonelli stopped maybe 20 meters further up the road than Esteban Ocon did, I think the race stewards might have had a hand in putting the safety car out rather than the virtual safety car here. But as a McLaren fan, I'm not going to complain. This is going to completely change up how the last 15 laps were looking. It was looking like the race was pretty much done inside of the top 10. Maybe Leclerc versus Hamilton, the final battle to play out. But now we're going to see something completely different. Verstappen does come into the pits. So Verstappen pits under the safety car and gets a fresh set of boots once again. So Verstappen, a good stop. Hamilton said it. Hamilton had come in there, but Hamilton's down at turn 14. Not sure what that was on for. Lando Norris has come into the pits. Oscar Piastri is just coming around the final corner. Is he also going to pit? Lando Norris is a little bit of a slow stop. Piastri saying to stay out. Charles Leclerc saying that he wants a set of softs, but the Ferrari team opting against it. Lando Norris then comes out of the pit lane, side by side with Alex Albon. Is he going to be ahead of Alex Albon? Just about. Lando Norris deciding he gets the position ahead of Albon for now. Charles Leclerc has stayed out. Lewis Hamilton, his teammate, came in. Isaac Hadjar also came in for a pit stop also. So George Russell has continued on. Russell then is going to gain a couple of positions on Hamilton and Hadjar, but he's going to have a lot less tyres. Carlos Sainz also, I think, has actually managed to get in front of Isaac Hadjar and all of that as well. He has indeed. Nico Hülkenberg still in the point scoring places in 10th. Yuki Tsunoda in 11th place. Fernando Alonso has pitted for Aston Martin. I think so has Lance Stroll. So both of the Aston Martin cars peeling into the pit lane. It's going to put them right at the back of the pack, though. Unless the other cars also pit. Colapinto has pitted for Alpine by the looks of things. I think that's Gabriel Bortoleto also coming in for the Stake Sauber team also. So it's going to be a bit of a weird one. Oscar Piastri is going to be ahead of Lando Norris, but Lando Norris on the fresher tyres. So it's going to be Verstappen leading, Piastri second, Lando Norris third. Safety car has finally caught up to Max Verstappen in all of this. Ollie Behrman is going to unlap himself at some point, I'm sure. But the safety car and Max Verstappen are only just making their way around turn 4. Piastri is still down in turn 2. So It's all happening, and the safety car has squished the grid back together again. If you're an Alex Albon fan, it's not been amazing. He's only pitting now, Alex Albon. So Leclerc is going to get that position, but Leclerc is going to have used tyres to Albon's fresh tyres. Albon, you're kind of hoping and praying, is still going to be able to get out in front of George Russell here, because he's deserved it with the performance that he's put in, and George Russell's just coming around. I think is just about, yes, indeed. Alex Albon is indeed going to get out in front of George Russell by 20 meters or so. The last Imola race we're going to get for a while now, and it is turning up the heat once again. It looked like it was done and dusted, but Kimi Antonelli coming to a stop at turn 7-8 is now completely changed the complexion of the race once again. The virtual safety car seemed to change the battle for the lead and put Max Verstappen in a resounding position of dominance, but now both of the McLaren cars are going to be right underneath the rear wing of the Red Bull, and he's got 15 laps left to play out of it. Of course, we're going to have to wait until the rest of the pack condenses, so we are hoping and praying that this gets done, this safety car gets done as quickly as it possibly can. Unless you're a Verstappen fan, in which case you're hoping and praying that this safety car lasts another 16 laps. Albon is just making his way down towards turn 16 as Charles Leclerc around turn 19. So that's the gap that needs to be closed. Oh, and they're actually having a little look at whether Albon was ahead of Lando Norris when Lando Norris initially came out of the pits. Although Albon has now pitted anyway. So, gonna be weird. Lando Norris, the fresher of the tyres of the two McLaren cars. They're just looking at Piastri there. Whether Piastri is going to have to give position to his teammate. Lando Norris has got the fresher tyres. You would think that Lando Norris has the better opportunity at catching Max Verstappen and going for the race lead. I'm not sure, though, Oscar Piastri is going to be as forthcoming with giving away track position to his teammate. Charles Leclerc and Alex Albon behind will be licking their lips at the opportunity of a podium if something does happen between the two McLaren cars ahead. Lando Norris coasting in. The safety car still out. Albon has caught up to the back of Leclerc. Russell and Hamilton soon to come behind as well. Gasly is the driver making his way through that yellow flag position, but everyone is almost concertinaed fully. Ollie Behrman has not been allowed to overtake at this point, so Ollie Behrman will get given the go-ahead to unlap himself hopefully soon. It's because the crane is still out moving Antonelli's car. And Charles Leclerc on the radio is saying he might even find it tricky to finish inside of the points because of how difficult these tyres are going to be. So Charles Leclerc really being, well, he's saying he's not being pessimistic on the radio. I think he's being quite pessimistic. He's running in 4th place at the moment and saying that he might even struggle to finish inside of the point scoring places. I mean, there are a lot of cars behind Charles Leclerc that are on similar kind of tyres. George Russell didn't pit. Carlos Sainz didn't pit. Nico Hülkenberg stayed out as well. So Lando Norris on the radio making his case. And Lando Norris, you know, he's being kind. Lando Norris is saying he's not asking to be let by, but he kind of is asking to be let by, is Lando Norris. Saying, you know, let's not make it difficult for one another, is the wording of Lando Norris in that. I mean, if you're McLaren, right? If you're McLaren and you're looking for the win and you're working as a team and the team is the thing that you are fully focused on, of course, you let Lando Norris past. If you're Oscar Piastri going for the World Championship, which at the moment he would still lead, and even if they swapped, he would still lead, but it is a 6-point swing in Lando Norris's favor because Lando Norris would gain 3 points, Piastri would lose 3 points if they were to swap. So you can understand Piastri's position in this because it's 6 points that they're playing with, but it is a win. And it is the possibility of taking points off of Max Verstappen, as Max Verstappen is also still in contention for winning the championship and still keeping that Red Bull car within touching distance of the two McLarens at the top of the times. So it's a very difficult call for the McLaren team to make. And I think, well, I don't want to be one of the engineers on the McLaren pit wall. It's going to be a very, very difficult few conversations that they are having as they are making their way around what surely will be the last couple of safety car laps, possibly even the final safety car lap now, as Kimi Antonelli's car is off the racetrack and the crane is making its way back. There are the tyres of Oscar Piastri's McLaren, and you can see why Lando Norris is saying those tyres look to be pretty shot to pieces. The track is now clear in Sector 6 is the confirmation. So will that safety car be called in at the end of this lap? I'd like to see it. I want to get back racing once again because we are going to see a lights out final 12 laps if the safety car does come in this lap. Piastri versus Norris to begin with, whether or not Norris can get up towards the rear end of Verstappen, whether Piastri has even got the life in his tyres to be battling with Verstappen at this point in the race. Charles Leclerc in 4th place as well, saying that he's going to be struggling with the tyres. Albon down in 5th. Fresh tyres on the Williams, though. Will Albon be able to get in front of Charles Leclerc? Russell decided not to pit. We're going to see Russell versus Hamilton in 6th and 7th place. That's a lovely little battle there as well. Ollie Behrman still hasn't been given the go-ahead to swap, which is so frustrating. Come on. Give Behrman the opportunity to unlap himself, and then we can actually get underway once again. Wow, Scott, thank you so much. Another super chat from Scott. He's keeping the channel running. He's keeping the lights on at this point. Thank you so much, Scott. Come on, Max, says Scott. Scott, I don't know if we can be as close of friends as I thought we once were. There's a lot of battles still to play out there. You just look at the interchange, the fact that almost every other car pitted. So you've got Verstappen who pitted, Piastri who didn't, Norris who pitted, Leclerc who didn't, Albon who pitted, Russell who didn't, Hamilton who pitted, Sainz who didn't, Hadjar who pitted, Hulkenberg who didn't. Like, it is going to be complete chaos in the top 10 because it is alternating cars at this point as to who pitted and who didn't. Behrman has finally been released. The safety car surely will be in at the end of this lap. Don't know why they waited so long to give Ollie Behrman the go-ahead, but he doesn't need to catch up to the back of the pack. They can release the cars whenever, as long as Ollie Behrman is a fair distance away. Come on. It's going to be a real sprint race to the finish here. And as I say, completely 50-50 on who decided to come in and who decided to stick it out. France, super France. Love that. 12 to go. Safety car still not being called in as of yet. So looks like it's going to be at least another lap because you'd assume that they'd bring in, or they'd tell the safety car to come in before they get through to the final sector. So going to be maybe 11 laps of racing. Let's hope and pray. Ollie Behrman has got a whole half a lap ahead of the safety car at this point. If Ollie Behrman hadn't have been so far back, we'd probably be racing at this point, wouldn't we? Because they wouldn't have had to let Ollie Behrman go. So actually, Ollie Behrman has cost us a lap of racing here in Imola. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, so we are going to do one more lap. So it's going to be 10 laps of racing. Surely they're bringing in the safety car this one. Come on. Come on. 9 laps. No, sorry, 10 laps will play out. And safety car is ending. There we go. Love that. Love to see it. Safety car coming in at the end of this lap. Piastri is in a problematic position. He knows that the win is in front of him. Max Verstappen there, but fresh tyres on the Red Bull is going to be the issue. He knows that his teammate is just behind him on fresh tyres also. The championship lead not quite in danger, but the stability of the championship lead he will be thinking about as that 6-point swing to his teammate, or whether he can gain a 7-point advantage on Verstappen by getting ahead. It's going to be very tight indeed. Lando Norris will also be looking at trying to get another victory under his belt after a very tricky start to the season for who we thought would be the main man at McLaren this year. Piastri, though, leading the championship as it stands. Leclerc struggling on those tyres down in the Ferrari car in 4th. Albon behind him in 5th. Could we see a Williams sneak into the podium places if something goes wrong for one of these 3 leaders? Hamilton versus Russell in 6th and 7th place as well. Russell's going to be under pressure from his old teammate now in red. Carlos Sainz didn't pit. Isaac Hadjar trying to show his worth. This is going to be a stunning finish to the end of the Imola Grand Prix. 10 laps of pure drama surely to come. The safety car has made its way into the pit lane. Max Verstappen backing up the pack as he tries to launch himself through turn 18, and off Max Verstappen goes. Piastri struggling on those older tyres. You can see just hasn't quite got the pace to live with Max Verstappen. Verstappen has escaped away from Piastri. Lando Norris, though, is going to be looking at his teammate down towards turn 2. Don't keep Charles Leclerc out of this. All 4 of them. And it's actually Charles Leclerc who has a look at the McLaren of Lando Norris and doesn't quite get there. Albon continues on. Russell 6th place, just ahead of Lewis Hamilton, who also has a look at his old teammate. Carlos Sainz 8th, Hadjar 9th, and Nico Hülkenberg has remained in 10th place for now, scoring a point for the Stake Sauber team. And Verstappen there has done a great job getting away. Verstappen has broken the DRS as well. Here comes Alex Albon, though, on Charles Leclerc. And Alex Albon has a little look, but doesn't quite get there on Charles Leclerc for now. Lewis Hamilton is all over the rear wing of George Russell as well. And those little pairings that I said just before the safety car came in are all playing out. Lewis Hamilton is right under the rear wing of George Russell and looking at him. Max Verstappen's done a great job, but Lando Norris is going to be within DRS range of his teammate. Charles Leclerc is starting to get really hot under the collar with that Williams car underneath his rear wing. Starting to see it out now. Max Verstappen comes across the start-finish line. And here we go then. Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris. They're going to be side by side down towards turn 2. Who's going to come out on top between the 2 McLarens? No team orders seem to have played out there as Norris has to sit behind his teammate for now. That safety car infringement for Lando Norris is now being investigated, whether or not he got out of the pits ahead of Alex Albon or not. DRS is now enabled as we have had one full lap of racing. Oh my goodness me, is Yuki Tsunoda on Nico Hülkenberg. Tsunoda trying to get up into the final point scoring place, having started from the pit lane. He has indeed. Hülkenberg forces himself a little bit wide and opens the door for Yuki Tsunoda up into 10th place. But we're watching the runners here at the front of the pack. It's Verstappen from Piastri, from Norris still. Lando Norris has actually just fallen slightly outside of DRS range of his teammate. That is not the case for Alex Albon in 5th, who is still causing a headache for Charles Leclerc behind. The Ferrari of Leclerc under pressure. The Ferrari of Hamilton, though, going forwards. Hamilton right underneath George Russell. Russell, no DRS to Albon. This is going to be where it starts to play out then, as the DRS does start to play out. No further investigation for Norris and Albon for that safety car infringement. But here comes Lando Norris once more on his teammate. DRS open behind Oscar Piastri. Doesn't have the pace, though, to close the gap to his teammate for now. Has to stick behind him through turn 2 and turn 3 once again. Alex Albon with DRS to Charles Leclerc. Again, also not able to quite get past the Williams car ahead. Sorry, the Ferrari car ahead. Lando Norris now starting to get frustrated, surely, as Max Verstappen is setting fastest lap after fastest lap. It's a 118.2 from Max Verstappen, which is going to allow the Red Bull to escape, and surely the victory in sight for Verstappen once again, as it was before the safety car. Alex Albon still putting Leclerc under pressure. Hamilton is putting in some very good lap times behind George Russell, closing in to within 0.3 of a second through the middle part of the lap. Will Lewis Hamilton go for an overtake in an unusual place? Have to wait and see. Doesn't quite do it through turn 14 and 15 for now. Carlos Sainz doing well just behind in 8th place. We'll be hoping that Hamilton can get past Russell so that he gets a little run at him, with Carlos Sainz also trying to defend from Isaac Hadjar behind. Lando Norris, DRS open once more, and Piastri's tyres continue to be cooked. And Lando Norris is getting closer and closer to his teammate, but still not able to do it. I'll tell you who is going to go for a move. It's Lewis Hamilton down towards turn 2, pulls off to the right-hand side of his old Mercedes team, and George Russell has to succumb to Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton up into 6th place. 3 seconds, though, adrift of Alex Albon, with 7 laps still to play out here. Can Lewis Hamilton maybe get himself up nearer his teammate? Lando Norris still behind Oscar Piastri, still half a second the gap, and it's just playing into Max Verstappen's hands every single lap that Norris is behind Piastri. It means that Max Verstappen can escape away to the win, and I think even at this point, if Norris does get past Piastri, Verstappen is too far away. Verstappen's just done a perfect job out in front. Fast lap after fast lap, which means that now Piastri surely will do everything in his power to keep Lando Norris behind. Charles Leclerc also under pressure from Albon. I'm keeping an eye on that battle, because that's one I really want Albon to do. I just love to see Albon finish in 4th place. I know 5th is still an incredible achievement. Here comes Lando Norris, though. Peels to the right-hand side of Piastri. Piastri's not going to make it easy down towards turn 2, but Lando Norris has got more than enough grip, and Lando Norris does take 2nd place away from his teammate. Just feels like 3 or 4 laps too late. Lando Norris 5 seconds adrift of Max Verstappen. Piastri does have to succumb to his teammate, so it's a 6-point swing in Lando Norris's favour there. Piastri will drop from 18 points to 15 for the weekend's work in Imola. And Alex Albon right under the rear wing of Charles Leclerc once again. Leclerc optimistic at the moment for a 4th place finish, saying on the radio under the safety car that he might finish outside of the points. It's looking okay for that at the moment. Albon half a second behind once more. Leclerc being followed voraciously by Alex Albon. Carlos Sainz also now has caught up to the back of George Russell, and Sainz being inside of the DRS range is just keeping Isaac Hadjar at bay. Isaac Hadjar again being stuck behind a Williams with DRS. He had to deal with that when the 2 Williams cars played the team game against him earlier on in the season, and now he's stuck behind Carlos Sainz once again, with Carlos Sainz inside of the DRS range of the car ahead. Alex Albon then looking down towards turn 1 once more. Sorry, turn 2. I was getting turn 1. Turn 2. Now down towards turn 5. The Williams again peels to the inside. Has a look at the Ferrari, but Charles Leclerc doing just enough. It feels like surely Albon is going to get a real opportunity at some point. Lando Norris, though, nowhere near living with the pace of Max Verstappen, and Verstappen is just doing fast lap after fast lap. Has anyone told Max Verstappen that this isn't a qualifying session? He is absolutely flying at the front of the pack. Now 6 seconds ahead of Lando Norris. Oscar Piastri has dropped a couple of seconds adrift from his teammate Charles Leclerc, then another couple of seconds behind. So it's looking like the top three is pretty much locked in. Charles Leclerc, though, under pressure from Albon, and Lewis Hamilton is now also within DRS range of the Williams car. So it's going to be a nice little tight battle between the two Ferraris and the Williams of Albon. Albon is going to be looking to try and get ahead of Leclerc, but is also going to have to keep an eye on his wing mirrors as Hamilton has caught up to the back of these two. Here comes Alex Albon then. Albon peels to the right-hand side as they go down towards turn 2. Albon goes off the track, and Albon through the dust and debris, and that's going to open the door to Lewis Hamilton, surely, and Albon, pushed wide by Leclerc at turn 2, has gone through the gravel at turn 3, and Hamilton has been the man to gain because of it. Surely the Ferraris are going to swap the positions of the two. And Albon had to go for it. He knew that Hamilton was sneaking in behind, and he knew that it was sort of a now or never maneuver in that Williams car. Let's watch the onboard again. Gets right up to the back of the end of the Ferrari, peels to the right-hand side of the track. Charles Leclerc does have the position down towards turn 3. And Albon says on the radio, that wasn't fair. That will be something that the stewards do have a little look at. Charles Leclerc, they are side by side with one another, and Charles Leclerc doesn't give Albon an inch of space. I think Albon did a pretty good job of not crashing into Charles Leclerc, to be honest, and I know he had to escape out onto the dirt and gravel to not hit into Charles Leclerc, but it was going to be collision otherwise. And here comes the Ferrari pair then. Lewis Hamilton versus Charles Leclerc. I don't think there's been any team radios there, but Charles Leclerc certainly makes it a lot easier for Lewis Hamilton to get past. And Hamilton then moves up into 4th place. So Hamilton up into 4th, Leclerc 5th, and Alex Albon now finds himself down in 6th place. Albon, though, is still within 0.3 of Charles Leclerc. It's not completely done and dusted. Even with a little bit of dirt and debris on those tyres, he's still going to have a little go, surely, to get back into 5th place where he was before. Max Verstappen can already start playing the national anthem. It feels like 6 seconds the gap between him and Lando Norris at the front. Piastri has dropped another 5 seconds from his teammate on those heavily worn hard compound tyres that he's got. Hamilton up into 4th place. Hasn't really got the time to catch up to the back of Piastri in the final 2 laps that we've got left. Charles Leclerc is the man under pressure from Albon still. So Hamilton gained perfectly there because Hamilton gained the position on Albon as he was in the gravel and then gained the position on Leclerc the lap later. So Hamilton beautifully played for him up into 4th place. Albon still putting Leclerc under pressure. George Russell is another 2 seconds adrift, so surely won't be in that battle. Isaac Hadjar, finally, Carlos Sainz has fallen outside of DRS range of Russell, so Hadjar is having a look at the back of the Williams, closes in with the DRS, but not able to do it yet, so it's going to be a last lap maneuver from Albon and Hadjar if they're going to make up the positions that they expected to after the safety car. Yuki Tsunoda down in 10th place in the final point scoring position. Another point on the board for him in his Red Bull career. It's not exactly what he'd have wanted coming into Imola, but it's a positive that he can take, having started in 20th. Thanks to Antonelli falling outside of the points, it really has to be said. Also, Fernando Alonso in 11th place. Frustratingly, no points for him once again. The Spaniard cannot catch a break in 2025. Even when the Aston Martin qualifies in 5th place, he finishes just outside of the point scoring places. He is half a second behind Tsunoda. Maybe a last lap maneuver, but feels unlikely for Fernando Alonso. And Charles Leclerc has been told to give the position back. Is that to Alex Albon? Maybe, because that investigation is underway and the stewards are looking at the incident of forcing a driver off the track. Alex Albon's going to peel to the inside then, and Charles Leclerc is not going to make it difficult. And Charles Leclerc has given that position to Alex Albon. So Alex Albon then moves back into 5th where he started. So he is still between the 2 Ferraris. Just the 2 Ferraris have swapped which way round they were. That's what's happened to Alex Albon. And Charles Leclerc, as you can imagine, not very happy on the radio with how that's played out. George Russell down in 7th place. Carlos Sainz in 8th has managed to get just inside a DRS range again, frustratingly for Isaac Hadjar, which means that Carlos Sainz is surely going to finish up in 8th place. Isaac Hadjar 9th. Yuki Tsunoda still in 10th as Fernando Alonso was the man hunting. But here is Max Verstappen, the man who led from the beginning. It felt like it played into his hands. Then the safety car might have caused him some troubles, but he's done it all the way to the end, and he's finished a solid 1st place. Lando Norris crosses the line in 2nd. Oscar Piastri can feel a little bit hard done by in 3rd spot. Lewis Hamilton wasn't too far off, only a 2.5 adrift of Piastri. Albon comes home 5th, Leclerc 6th, Russell 7th, Sainz in 8th. Isaac Hadjar gets another couple of points ahead of Yuki Tsunoda in 10th. We do have Alonso, Hulkenberg, Gasly, Lawson, Stroll, Colapinto and Behrman finish up the race just behind. Gabriel Bortoleto, the final man across the start-finish line there for us. And Kimi Antonelli and Esteban Ocon, the 2 drivers that dropped out of the race, both for mechanical issues down into turn 7. Mysterious. I'll have a little look into that. But that is how the race finishes. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you could, leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new. And if you're a member or you want to become a member, you can join us for the post-race show. It's sort of a half-an-hour chat we're going to move straight into. For all of you members out there, should be live on the channel already, and we will go through the repercussions of what was quite an eventful Imola Grand Prix, and what might be the final Imola Grand Prix. So thank you guys so much. As I said again, thank you for watching, and I will see all of you members in a couple of minutes time.